All right, Joe. All right, everybody.
All right.
Go ahead.
All right.
You don't have your props, but
No. Here's a prop right here, Joe.
My Aunt Velma, she's quite a woman.
Oh.
I always called her my favorite aunt. Oh, okay, I know what you're thinking. She was my only aunt. But she still called me her favorite nephew, and I wasn't her only nephew. My Aunt Velma, she grew up with my dad and their older brother, Vance. I gotta think for a second. Oh, don't start crying now. Everybody was real pleased when she announced that she was getting married to Vern Crosley.
The Vern?
Vern was real popular around these parts. He had a great sense of humor. He was quite a bass fisherman. He played a pretty mean game of poker, too. Now, I know what you're thinking. These aren't exactly the qualities that make for a good husband. But Vern was a hard worker, and he was a good provider. And Vern loved Velma, and Velma loved Vern, and that's all that really matters. Now, nobody really knows exactly how Aunt Velma came up with the idea for her big invention. But everybody in these parts sure remembers when and why. See, Velma was real excited when her best friend Veronica announced that she was getting married in the spring. She wanted Velma to be in the wedding party. Velma wasn't too pleased when Vern said, "Well, darling, that's the same weekend as the big bass tournament, and you wouldn't be able to attend." Well, it didn't take long for Velma to decide that, well, if Vern wasn't going to go to the wedding, he wasn't going to go bass fishing neither. So she got into the closet, reached way up on the back shelf, way in the top, pulled down that quilt that her mother-in-law, Victoria, had made for her and Vern when they got married, and she went down in the basement. She went through a bunch of Vern's old tackle boxes until she found just what she was looking for. Then she sat down, and real slow, she sewed a whole bunch of fishing hooks on one side of that quilt, except for right down the middle. See, because that's where Vern was going to be laying. So, the night before the wedding, in the big bass tournament, while Vern was laying in bed, sound asleep, she took that quilt, laid it down real gentle over the top of Vern, and she pushed those fishing hooks down real tight into that mattress. Well, at 4 a.m. when that alarm clock went off, old Vern, he's stuck in that bed. He can't move hardly at all, let alone get his hand out to turn off the alarm clock. So Velma went over, turned off the alarm, and she pretty much took her time getting herself all ready to go to the wedding. And when she left Vern stuck underneath that quilt in bed. Well, Vern laid there all day long. But with half the town at the wedding and the other half of the town at the bass tournament, then later on that day, well, Veronica's wedding reception kind of turned into a combination wedding reception fish fry. So you can kind of understand why it was pretty late that night before finally somebody said, "Where's Vern?" So, Sheriff Victor Buford and his son Vic Jr., they decided they better go on over to the Crosley house and see where Vern was. Well, when they got there, here's Vern, still stuck underneath that quilt. They pretty left themselves silly. Now, it was Vic Jr. He was really amazed at how well those fishing hooks worked. In fact, they had to take out their fishing knives and cut through that quilt in order to get poor Vern out of bed. Well, funny thing is, the rest of it went pretty fast after that. Next week, well, that was the end of spring break. Vic Jr. went back to school at Vanderbilt. And he must have told that story 100 times. Each time he told it, he got to thinking about it. So it was actually Vic Jr. that really perfected the idea. So he came back to town and sat down and met with Vern and Velma, and right then and there they formed their own company. And right then and there they named their new product after Velma. Well, Vern and Velma, they lived real happy after that. Vern spent most days fishing, and Velma, well, she was perfectly content to dote on Vern and brag about how he was her inspiration and all. She even remembered her favorite nephew. Yes, sirree. She saw to it that I got a lifetime supply of her invention. Although she was kind of embarrassed when they put that big sign up outside of town that said, "Proud home of Velma Crosley." What? She's the inventor of velcro.